9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. Now, last night saw another night of carnage in our city. I've got to be honest though, you'd hardly know about some of it by looking at some of our media today. Also, our Prime Minister has now earned the moniker from many of being, I quote, two-tier Kia. Is that harsh or fair? Elon Musk, he's coming under fire for his response to it all as well, I can promise you. Some very robust debate coming up on all of that. Also, there's a bizarre spectacle of a press conference around the Manchester airport incident. Have you seen all that? How weird. I'll be speaking to a lawyer about that. All of that and more. But first, the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening from the GB newsroom at 6 o'clock. Your top story this hour. The Prime Minister will chair another emergency COBRA meeting shortly as police brace for another night of unrest across the country. Suspects are appearing in court after a week of violence in the UK sparked by the stabbings in Southport. 100 people have been charged and more than 400 arrested so far. It's following violent disorder across England and in parts of Northern Ireland. A former head of the UK's counter-terror police force has said it's time to start treating the worst of the riots as terrorism. In the US, Kamala Harris has picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate for November's presidential election. The Democratic Party candidate confirmed the news on X earlier. Mr. Walz, who is a former teacher and a member of the US Army National Guard, responded to the news on X, saying it was an honour of a lifetime to join the campaign. Harris will hope the Democrat, who served more than a decade in Congress, can help shore up her campaign in the critical upper Midwest region. The decision will be pivotal as Harris prepares to challenge Donald Trump in the upcoming election, following President Biden's exit from the race. Back in the UK, a solicitor of a man who was kicked in the head by a police officer at Manchester Airport says the family is the victim of a smear campaign. Amar Anwar says Fahir Ahmaz's mother was racially abused on a plane before the events of last month. He's also accused officers of not having body cams turned on during the incident.
Ahmad and his mother Shamim were shocked at the unnecessary aggression and violence, alleged violence, shown from the start. There was no immediate attempt to speak to Fahir, to ask him to step aside, to caution him, or to simply say, can we speak to you for a second?
In Wales, Ellen Ed Morgan has been selected as First Minister, the first woman to take on the role. She was confirmed in a vote of Senedd members earlier after the Welsh Parliament was recalled from summer recess. The leader of Welsh Labour marked the occasion in her speech, declaring the grey suits are out, as she hopes to add a vibrant splash of colour to the role. Shocking levels of chaos at Wandsworth Prison are taking place in plain view of leaders. That's according to a new report by Prisons Watchdog. The prison's inspectors found the London jail not safe, with rampant violence, drug use and overcrowding. Despite nearly £900,000 invested since the alleged escape of Daniel Khalif, staff still fail to account for prisoners during the day. The Ministry of Justice is promising £100 million for improvements, but critics are calling for an urgent change in leadership. 3 water companies are facing a combined record fine of £168 million after a series of failings, including sewage spills. Thames Water, Northumbrian and Yorkshire Water were issued the penalty by the regulator Ofwat. Thames is facing the biggest fine of £104 million. A number of hostile unmanned aerial vehicles have crossed into Israel from Lebanon, with several civilian casualties reported. Hezbollah has claimed responsibility for the swarm of attack drones, but warns much stronger attacks are still to come. This latest escalation comes as fears are rising that the Middle East could be tipped into full-blown war after leaders of the Lebanese militant group and Hamas were assassinated last week. And Great Britain's equestrian team have finished the Paris Games with 5 medals, including 2 golds. Meanwhile, Sky Brown defied a shoulder injury to claim a bronze medal for Great Britain at the women's skateboard park competition. Meanwhile, Keely Hodgkinson has become just the 10th British woman to win athletics gold as she stormed across the line in the 800 metres. And Team GB set a new world record in the women's team sprint track cycling, bringing the total medal haul to 12 gold so far and putting them 5th in the table. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. I am Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, Sean Simon, the former Labour Minister, and Connor Tomlinson, the writer and commentator. Good evening, gents, to both of you. You're very welcome tonight, as are each and every single one of you at home, wherever you're watching or listening. You're very, very welcome this evening. I want you to be part of our conversation tonight, and you can do so in all the usual ways. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website, which is gbnews.com/yoursay, or of course you can tweet or X me. But as I said, wherever you are, you're very welcome tonight. Now look, very dark days at the moment, it feels like, in society. So I do want to start my programme, if you will, take a moment just to look at some good news, if we can call it that, because, of course, I wish that we were never in this position in the first place. But I just wanted to let you all know that all the children now that are under the care of Alderhay Children's Hospital in Southport have been safely discharged home. We all know that the incident which sparked a lot of the unrest that we are having in our society, of course, started with that attack on those little girls that were just, you know what, as children do up and down this country, starting their school holidays, going to a dance class, bracelet making class with their, you know, in the theme of their idol, Taylor Swift. We all know by now the horrendous things that happened next. So, of course, many of us will have been hoping and praying for those little children. So I can, again, confirm that they are all now out of hospital, and thank goodness for that. Of course, all of those children that have been in hospital and beyond will hold the memories of that horrendous incident. I don't even have the word. I don't even want to glorify that man in any way. So all I will say is that those children will have trauma, I imagine, for a long time to come, and we pray for each and every single one of them and all of them affected by that horrendous situation. Now, speaking of the horrendous situations, we've had another night of carnage unfold on the streets of Britain last night. The Prime Minister will be holding another Cobra meeting imminently, actually, tonight. I've got to say, though, one of the things that's kind of really struck me is that many people, media, of course, whipping themselves into a frenzy about how far right everything is, Cobra meetings happening, tough talking coming out from Keir Starmer. Let me start, because there's a lot I want to address in tonight's programme, because many people would argue now that this two-tier scenario is not just affecting policing, it's affecting government response, perhaps, it's affecting some of the media coverage of it, and so on and so forth. I'll unpick all of that throughout this programme, worry not. Let me just start, though. I'll start with you, Connor. Your general kind of thoughts on what we're seeing occurring at the moment.
I think if Keir Starmer wanted to prevent further violence, he would not have responded in the way that he has. I don't see how it's responsible for a Prime Minister to declare the need for a standing army of police officers, implying he is going to war with someone, to only come out and give press conferences in the aftermath of the Southport stabbings, not because of the stabbing, because of the ensuing protests and riots, to only unilaterally blame the far right when we have got abundant videos on social media and in mainstream reporting now of Muslim gangs charging police lines in Bolton, in Birmingham, to only say that the far right are responsible for this and therefore everyone else must be made to feel safe, to then allocate £28 million to the defence of mosques. No mosque should be attacked, but of course there is a Muslim gang out there. He is inflaming tensions among both groups, and that is very reckless. And so he should come out tonight, after his Cobra meeting, and deliver a much more balanced address and put to rest these, I think, well-substantiated claims that there is a two-tier approach to policing in this country.
Sean?
There are not well-substantiated claims. These claims are utterly unsubstantiated. They're being made by...
Which claims? What are we on about?
The claims, well, for instance, the claim that there is Muslim gangs, loads of evidence of Muslim gangs getting up to stuff just as bad as the football hooligans who are laying waste to the country. That's simply not true.
Sorry, should they be carrying bladed weapons and intimidating Sky News anchors?
1 second, let him finish the
That's a
point.
lie.
No, I'm afraid you are the one who told the lie, and by telling those lies, you are deliberately inflaming this situation.
Right.
That's the truth.
What lies do you believe he's telling?
What he just said, that I just said, that's just not true. It's not true that there are Muslim gangs roaming the country doing the same kind of thing.
The BBC reported on it on Sunday.
And that the Prime Minister should show balance. The truth is that there are huge numbers of coordinated football hooligan criminal thugs who are doing serious violence, putting dozens and dozens of brave police officers in hospital, doing huge damage to property. There is no equivalent Muslim thing going on. That is a lie.
OK, so where do we start with this? What we're seeing, I think, around this table actually reflects the conversation, the debates, the disagreements that are happening in broader society, because many people are of Connor's opinion and many people, of course, are also of Sean's opinion. I want to bring you into this conversation, so I want your thoughts throughout all of this. Now, social media. So when you're saying, in fact, let you answer for yourself. I was just about to start explaining on your behalf. You can do that yourself. You're a big boy. So he's saying you're lying when you're saying that these gangs roaming around and all the rest of it. What do you say back to that?
GBNews this morning, Charlie Peters went and spoke with the woman who runs the pub that a gang of Muslim men flying the Palestine flag, chanting Allahu Akbar, carrying blades, attacked. There was nothing to do with the protests in that pub. There were children there in the aftermath of the karaoke event. And this is all on video.
And that was disgraceful behaviour by that small group of individuals.
So I'm not lying then?
Several of whom, doubtless, will be arrested for the crimes that they committed.
Happen, then?
But it is not comparable. Did they put 50 police officers in hospital? Did they set fire to and destroy the pub? Did they attack and firebomb? No, nothing of the sort.
Hang on, they did assault a man in the pub. They did assault a man in the pub. They did assault a man in the pub.
Nothing of the sort.
You're telling the truth there.
Nothing of the sort and nothing like it. And have you talked about the video on the BBC this evening of local Muslim people going round to that pub to apologise on behalf of local
Muslims? There's a problem there. One of them that actually went round for the apology has been identified by online sleuths as probably one of the perpetrators.
Online sleuths?
Because he's wearing it's the exact same build, it's the exact same
Hang on, everyone, just stop. Just hang on, hold your horses. I just want to explain to my viewers at home. If you're watching the telly, you are now seeing what Sean basically said didn't happen. So you are now seeing a pub in Birmingham, I think it is, and this was last night.
I didn't say it didn't happen.
I said it wasn't.
I said it wasn't comparable. I said it wasn't
comparable.
You said it was a lie first time.
Absolutely, that was his whole point.
You said it was a lie.
He said the Prime Minister should show balance. It is a lie to say that anything comparable has been happening.
He shouldn't condemn that.
It is a lie to say.
He shouldn't condemn that.
If you ask the Prime Minister to condemn criminality.
Why do you have a problem condemning
He will
this?
clearly condemn all criminality.
Hang on, no.
As I just
He's not condemning all criminality.
There is no
He's not condemning
comparable
all criminality. This is the point. He's only blamed the far right. I don't want people setting fire to hotels in Rochdale. I don't want opportunistic thugs going and looting at a Lush or a Greggs. And I don't want this to happen either.
This is another clip from Birmingham last night where the mobs, the Muslim mobs of men, decided that a car had a white man in it and they smashed this car. Many would say they attempted to get the driver out of this car, apparently because of the skin colour.
Many would say, I mean, did they or not?
On the flip side, well, Sean, you know, many people have seen this footage. I'm showing the footage for themselves, so you at home can be the judge. This is Hull, my hometown. I'm ashamed to admit that. This is a gang of, you know, protesters here that the media would describe as far right. They, too, are attacking a car because they said it had foreign-looking men in the car. This is completely disgusting. So I've just shown you two sides. Completely unacceptable. You've got the so-called, which I wouldn't call these people that, but you've got the so-called protesters that people regard to as far right. You've seen someone attacking that car there because they think there's foreign people driving. Disgusting racist behaviour, I can tell you that. And then you've seen the other side there in Birmingham where you've got Muslim groups attacking a car because they think a white guy is driving. An EDL member, also racist, disgusting behaviour, and I would argue quite comparable, actually.
Not comparable at all, because not comparable in scale. Have dozens and dozens and dozens of policemen been put in hospital by those Muslims in Birmingham? No.
So let me tell you now what many people, Sean, will be shouting at their screens. So your concern here seems to be, your measure of badness almost seems to be how many police officers have been injured. Many of my viewers, Sean, will be shouting at their screens saying, no, Michelle, there's not been masses of police officers injured in Birmingham for one simple reason. Where were the police? It was like spot the police officer. Where were they? When you had gangs of these people, many of them armed, we saw that for ourselves, many of them doing all kinds of things in their car, and many of them, as I've just shown you, trying to get at somebody in their car because they thought he was an EDL member. The police weren't harmed because the police weren't there.
The police were there.
They weren't.
Where?
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. Literally, one of the heads of Birmingham Police came out this morning and said it was nothing more than a scuffle you'd see on a Saturday night. They were not there. This is what I'm saying. It is comparable because both actions are immoral. And I'll tell you what, mate, I think they should crack down on this before they reach the same scale of police officer injuries. I don't think they should wait till then. And Keir Starmer, by not calling it out, is letting it escalate.
Graham Whettone, the police officer who spent 30 years on the front line of public order policing and wrote the book on public order policing, absolutely clearly, unequivocally, as all senior police officers have done, have said, obviously, policing, anybody who knows anything about policing will tell you, is tiered. You can't police everything at full scale, everywhere, all the time. You tier policing according to the threat and the requirement. That event, those blokes standing on the middle of a roundabout, was appropriately policed by the police.
Standing in the middle of a roundabout, they literally we've just played the footage of them assaulting a car and assaulting a pub. Why are you not admitting this has happened?
Why are you not distinguishing that from the level of disorder, violence and criminality?
I already said they should go to prison.
The level of disorder, violence and criminality that has gone on all over this country
I already said
for a week. The bottom line is, which side are you on? And you are on the side of the criminal football hooligans. That is which side you're on, because you're trying to make the argument that a few Muslims standing in the middle of a roundabout amounts to the same thing, and it doesn't.
They weren't
nothing
standing in the
like
middle of a roundabout, and you know it. They had bladed weapons, they intimidated a Sky News reporter, they were speeding, they attacked a car, and they attacked people inside a pub, and I have no problem condemning people that are arsonists, that are thieves,
I have no problem
and you
condemning.
I have no problem. You just denied it existed until you played video footage.
No.
You said I was a liar when you said there were no two tiers of policing.
That's not
true.
true.
Cited a police officer saying there were multiple tiers.
Not true at all.
That, please.
I have condemned any criminality that happened, and I have said that I have no doubt that the police, who will have been well aware what was happening, will take action and there will be arrests.
That is my concern. I have a doubt.
That's
because they were not present.
That's because you're not on the side of the police. You're not on the side of Britain.
I'm on
You're
the
not on the
side
side
of
of
the
our
law
country.
being
You're not on the
enforced
side of our
equally.
law. You're not on the side of our institutions. You're only on the side of the football hooligans who are trying to destroy all that. That's why.
I am on the side of the law being applied equally, and my concern is, as it was not in Hare Hills, Leeds, as it was not in the recent Manchester Airport event, as it was not clearly in the footage you saw in Birmingham.
How do you know how the law was or wasn't applied in the recent Manchester Airport event?
Because they have not been charged yet.
What does that mean that the law hasn't?
Yes, because we've also on the CCTV where they're hitting police officers unprovoked.
Well, we'll talk to a lawyer
We're going to do that later, but this is another in a pattern of events. We cannot have it where the law is afraid of applying the law to certain protected
The law is not
groups.
afraid. The law is not afraid.
It clearly is.
The law is not afraid. The police are not afraid. The Prime Minister is not
Right,
afraid.
let me ask you a question.
You have an agenda.
He hasn't. Right, OK, well, we're going to come back. Apparently, he's saying he's got an agenda, so we'll ask him about that in a minute after the break. Let me just be clear. Are you telling me and the viewers that you don't think there's anything two-tier going on in the society, whether it's policing, whether it's media reporting or government response? It's all level playing field. It's all nothing to see here.
Do you not think that there are a lot? What is
that's not what I think. I'm asking you what you think. I know what I think.
What colour are most people in prison?
What's that got to do with my question to you?
Well, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is that they're not white. So how does that fit with your two-tier policing?
But I'm asking you, in current times, with the conversation that we're having now, which is about the state of the rioting, the protesting and the criminality and all of that, do you think there is a two-tier response to the current goings-on the streets or not?
I don't think the current goings-on have got two tiers. The current goings-on are about far-right football hooligan criminals trying to attack our democracy, and they are being policed by hard-working, brave police people who should have the support that they're not getting.
Right, well, as I've said, you're hearing two very different opinions here, and this is what I want to happen. I want different sides of these arguments to come together and respectfully debate, because Sean's saying, whose side are you on? And actually, if you don't mind me being so bold, I think this is part of the problem, actually, that people are being pushed to pick a side. Whose side do you support? Actually, I think we should all be on the very same side, which is the same side of peace and restoring law and order and calmness and civility to the society in which we live. So there should just be one side, if you ask me. This conversation is going to continue in two.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Football and gambling can go hand in hand and cause long-term problems. New figures show that young adults aged between 16 and 24 who have bet over the last year are more likely to report mental health issues compared to those in older age groups.
And joining us now to discuss this is Matt Burgess, who is a former gambling addict and now helps those to deal with their own gambling issues.
Yeah, I think gambling is one of those things that is so accessible now. You know, everyone's got a kind of mobile phone in their pocket, walk around with a kind of 24-hour casino, if you like. So I think it's really important that people realise that we have to sort of recognise that that is a month of quite condensed gambling, and we don't want people to sort of carry that on into their everyday life, because that's when it can become really risky and you know, it could become addictive.
I had no idea, though, that it was linked to first-time gambling. For the first time, people might be able to pick up and have a go. And then it doesn't end there. It goes on, because by then you've got the bug. Is that how it works?
You've got to remember, for things like the Euros, the World Cup, so you get a lot more people watching football and therefore potentially betting on football.
May I ask you about how severe your own gambling addiction got?
Well, look, I think there was a couple of touch points for me where I realised that things were getting out of hand. There were some times at university where, you know, I kind of thought, you know, I'm definitely doing this a bit too much, but, you know, kind of thought maybe it would move on once I left, but it didn't. It did follow me. And then, you know, I got to points where I was at my worst gambling 16, 17 hours a day. I was spending huge amounts of money. It can spiral out of control very, very quickly, and that was the important thing that we want to highlight is, you know, what can start as fun can become very, very dangerous in a sense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Co till 7 o'clock. Alongside me, Sean Simon, the former Labour Minister, and Connor Tomlinson, the writer and commentator. I can tell you, feisty debate to begin the programme, and actually this reflects what is going on in society at the moment. People have very strong opinions. They have different views as to who's causing which problems and how the government is or isn't responding to it. So we're very much echoing what many of you guys think at home. So you've heard from these two. Let's hear from somebody else, shall we? And listen to what she has to say, Dame Priti Patel.
You know, we believe in the rule of law in this country, not the rule of the mob. End of story. What we saw last night, and I saw that footage in Birmingham, that's just outrageous and unacceptable. That was criminality and violence. But what was missing? Where were the police? Now, I don't know the full facts behind this, so I don't want to go into any speculation whatsoever. But again, in the absence of the facts, the government needs to be answering these questions in Parliament.
Well, there you go. That's Priti Patel, and that is an exclusive interview that's coming up tonight on the Patrick Christie Show. He joins me now. Tell us more, Patrick.
Yes, absolutely. So it's Dame Priti Patel's first TV interview since she announced that she was going to be running to be the leader of the Conservative Party. Hopefully, in her mind, going to be the next leader of the opposition and the next Prime Minister, of course. It's a wide-ranging interview. I've asked her a series of questions, including whether or not she thinks that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper have made this rioting worse. Quite an interesting take from her on that. Does she believe in two-tier policing? Does she believe, I explicitly asked her, whether or not she feels as though politicians are less likely to call out the actions of certain elements of the British Muslim community as they are for other aspects of communities in Britain? Again, an interesting answer. She was scathing about Labour's Jess Phillips. She also chimed in a bit about Keir Starmer's pitched battle with Elon Musk that is raging on as well. Just in terms of a couple of other aspects of it, I also wanted to know whether or not she would throw her arms around Suella Braverman if she became the next Tory leader. Those two are rumoured not to get on particularly well. Why she thought she was better than Robert Jenrick. And, of course, as well, what would happen with Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. I'll be on Nigel's show later with another clip of what she had to say. I'm not sure it's great news for Nigel. Can I just very quickly, Michelle, not to eat into too much of your time, I have got another big scoop tonight.
Get on with
my
it,
show.
then.
And it is revealed, anyway, some of Labour's secret plans for asylum seekers and illegal migrants. And I can't help but wonder, given Tinderbox Britain at the moment, whether or not that might actually make things a heck of a lot worse. But you'll have to tune in to find out.
That sounds riveting stuff. Patrick Christie's, and I, for one, will be watching. That's tonight, Patrick Christie's at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for that. Now, where were we? OK, I remember exactly where we were. We're debating what is unfolding on the streets of Britain. Of course, we saw chaos again on the streets last night, and it really has, yet again, divided people. We've, of course, seen repeats of the scenes that we've had already, where you've got people that are protesting against things like uncontrolled immigration on the streets of Britain. They are coming, I would argue, actually, too close, in some cases, to counter-protest, where people are obviously very passionate in their belief that refugees are welcome. So very unpleasant scenes that we've been seeing when those two groups are being confronted. Also, the thing we were just really talking about last night was now we've had the situation where, and I would argue that, again, lots of this has been spawned by misinformation, and I would argue as well downright lies, quite frankly, on social media, because now you've got groups of people from within the Muslim community taking to the streets, apparently to defend themselves against a so-called far-right threat that's not actually materialising. It's people on social media that's saying people are coming down to your areas. Connor Tomlinson, we were just talking about that. Sean Simon is having absolutely none of that. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's inadvisable for anyone to go to these protests, first of all, because even if you're going down to show that you are mourning the loss of the Southport's victims or you have objections to immigration, as I do, you are probably going to be swept up in violence committed by other people, which you should not commit, and you will probably be arrested. So I'm going to say to people, even though feelings are high, it is very unwise to go down there no matter what you hear. But I think the important point is being made before the break that the police have, in other instances and in this, had a stronger presence at the English side of the riots than the Muslim side of the riots.
Well, you can't say English because a lot of people are Muslim. They're also English.
No, as in, like, the English flag-waving, ethnically English side of the riots, because there's not a large Muslim presence at the main demonstration since the Southport riots, is there? I think that's a fair distinction to make. And the point being, there have been prior events, and this has been raised by other guests on your show, particularly yesterday, like the Black Lives Matter riots, where in America there was a parallel demonstration in England where there was criminal damage committed and the Met gave their officers the go-ahead to take the knee. There was the Palestine protests every weekend and Wednesday since October the 7th, not since Israel's retaliation, mind you, who shot fireworks at police horses, who projected from the river to the sea on the Elizabeth Tower while Parliament was in session, who were intimidating MPs, and they got a lot lighter of a touch. So all I'm asking is the standards be applied fairly and we don't have massive ethnic gangs fighting in British streets.
It's not legitimate to distinguish between Muslims and English. Like, it's not legitimate to say ethnic English versus Muslims. Like, we don't talk like that in this country anymore.
What do you mean you don't talk like that in this country?
We, the rest of the country, the mainstream, the normal Britain, proper Britain, we don't talk like that. We don't think like that. And it's you that's got...
Like what?
Like that.
No, like what are you insinuating?
I'm not insinuating, I'm saying it really clearly straight to your face.
You're not?
Yes, I am.
Say it.
Ethnic English versus Muslim. We don't talk like that in this country anymore unless we are racists.
It's possible to be not ethnically English and born in Britain. Like, that's not a controversial statement whatsoever.
What's ethnically English mean?
As in your grandparents and your parents and they're from Anglo-Saxons. But I'm not associating any morality with that. I'm just saying there are two groups here. One group is flying the English flag, one flag is the Palestine flag. Like, that group that's flying the Palestine flag, that are saying Allahu Akbar and the like, they're not protesting on behalf of England as the other protesters say they are. That's the only distinction I make.
Those hooligans in balaclavas throwing fire bombs at mosques and putting British policemen in hospital, those people, they don't stand for England.
Hang on, I'm not saying they're standing for England. I'm saying they are English people.
Well, none of them are Irish then by heritage or Scottish.
Well, they might well be, but I'm saying
so why do you call them English?
Because the predominance of the protests are waving the English flag, and by their accents in the video, they sound English. Why is this a contention? I'm just saying there's one side here and one side there, and I don't want massive ethnic fights. What a weird thing to pick up on.
Because it's not a weird thing, because being English is not an ethnicity.
Well, hold on.
England's a country.
Right.
Yeah, it's a nation.
Yeah, and a nation has a people.
And this country, this nation of mine and most people, including most people watching this programme, they don't think like that anymore because it's full of people who are not and have not been for generations what you call ethnically English.
But hang on, there are still ethnically English people here. That doesn't mean that there aren't ethnically English people here just because we have new arrivals. That's like saying Scotland has immigrants, therefore there are no Scottish people.
But I mean, I don't know if we're going slightly off topic because one of the issues in society at the moment is everybody is throwing labels around left, right, and centre. They're often sometimes doing it as a way of smearing people. They're often sometimes doing it as a way of trying to silence debate, and sometimes they're trying to do it to just categorise people. I mean, it's not the same, but it's certainly an application of labels. You've just described everyone earlier on as being football hooligans. I mean, unless you've followed each and every one of these people around, I suspect you've got no idea whether these guys are football fans, rugby fans, or no sports fans at all.
The point of saying that is that what they're not is political protesters making a valid point. They have totally forfeited the right to be considered protesters.
Let me tell you now where
by the way that
I'll tell you
behaving.
where I agree with you, and I think that one of the things that's a real tragedy that's happened in all of this is that I do believe that there are a number of people, and I would argue that those numbers of people are in their millions within this country, that have very legitimate concerns about the shape and the direction that this country is travelling in. And for decades, the people in power, when it comes to politicians, has repeatedly ignored those people's concerns. They've not just ignored them, they've smeared them, they've tried to shame them into silence, and they've delegitimised the concerns that many people have. What's happened now is by these criminal, thuggish, often racist activities, this is what we're now talking about. So we are now talking about people attacking police officers. That's never okay. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter what labels you want to give to anyone. You can't go around battering police officers. That's not what you do in this country. You certainly can't go around damaging places of worship, whether that's a mosque, synagogue, church or whatever. That is wrong. And I don't even want to embarrass myself even by reducing this down to talking about nicking shoes and bath bombs. I mean, that goes without saying. And it also is categorically wrong when people start attacking someone else that's innocent just based on the colour of their skin. But I do find it quite remarkable that, and it's almost a convenient fact to the government, that because the conversation now has come about this stuff that we've just been talking about and denouncing quite rightly, the conversation that many people have, you're saying that there's not a political element to this. The government, one of the former chief police bosses, he was talking about classifying this as terrorism. So there must be, in his mind, some sort of element of trying to create some kind of change in policy or political outcome or something like that associated to some of this stuff. But do you think that many people in society do have legitimate concerns about things like immigration, uncontrolled immigration?
I think you're right when you say that there are millions of people who have those views and that those views have not found a place in mainstream politics, and that we haven't found a way as a society to have that conversation in a good way.
It's not that we've not found a way as society, because many people are very open and able to have that conversation. What's happened is that people that operate within the establishments of power, whether that's politicians, whether it's many people within the media and so on and so forth, the second people, and this goes back years, the second people start raising concerns about the pace of change in their neighbourhoods, or the fact that there is now a hotel in their neighbourhood that is full of 100 men with no idea who these people are, essentially from war zones via the safe country of France, obviously. The minute someone tries to raise those concerns, they are immediately called far right. And that is very deliberate. That's not an accident. That's not a accidental label. That's a deliberate label intended to shame people into silence. And then, let me say this. When you censor, I have a little saying, and I think that censorship is the midwife of extremism. When you take somebody's concerns about, and I accept there's loads of people that love the immigration rules as they are, and, they'll stand on the chairs and they'll chant refugees welcome and all the rest of it, so that's wonderful. I'm not talking about those people, I'm talking about the opposite side of the argument. When people do have those concerns and they've been shamed into silence, you don't make those concerns go away. If someone's got these concerns about uncontrolled immigration, when they're called far right and almost battered into submission, you don't suddenly lose those concerns. What happens is you shame them into silence, and censorship is the midwife of extremism. So what you actually do is you push those concerns to the more extreme fringes of public conversation and a public society, and that is problematic, let me tell you. Look, conscious of time, so I'm going to take a quick break right there. I will be back to continue this conversation in 2.
Good evening. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking further ahead, and there will be some rain at times for many of us as we go through Thursday and Friday, but for the time being, we're changing to something a bit cooler, a bit blustery and a bit showery, because there's an area of low pressure to the northwest of the UK, and this is driving some showery bursts across parts of the UK. For many central and eastern parts of England and also eastern Scotland, it's actually going to be a largely dry night with some clear skies, but further west we have quite a few showers piling in, and some of them could be a little bit on the heavy side. Most notable perhaps in the south will be the fresher feel to things. Temperatures will be a good few degrees lower than they were last night, perhaps a bit more comfortable for sleeping. Taking a closer look at first thing tomorrow morning, then across much of central southern England, it's looking like a bright, fine start, but some showers across parts of the southwest and also some showers for parts of Wales as well, and northwest England too. Meanwhile, northeast England starting the day largely dry. Quite a few showers across Northern Ireland, but it's across Scotland where we're going to have the heaviest, most persistent rain, some showery rain making its way northeastwards as we go through the morning. This rain could cause some problems on the roads, could be some spray around, perhaps even a little bit of localised flooding. But it does clear away northwards as we go through the morning and breaks up, so just turning quite showery across Scotland and also across many northern and western parts through much of the day. Towards the south and east, you have a greater chance of avoiding those showers, and here we'll have the highest temperatures, highs of around 23, 24, so not quite as high as they have been recently. More wet weather to come as we go through towards the end of the week. There are a series of fronts waiting to come in from the west, so most of us will see some rain arriving as we go through Thursday, and there could be a bit more rain to come as we go through Friday as well. All the time it's likely to be quite blustery or breezy, and so that will add to the relatively cool feel to things considering it is August. Bye-bye.
The latest GB News travel.
And a very good evening to you. My name is Johnny Ratner. Big problems in Lancashire on the M6. The northbound carriageway of the motorway is still blocked from junction 30 to 31 between the M61 and the A59. Emergency services dealing with an accident causing long queues as well, heading up the M61 approaching the M6. The M1 in Bedfordshire, that's down to a single lane southbound from junction 13 to 12. Everyone's been squeezed into the outside lane past the scene of an accident involving 3 lorries just south of Bedford. It's taking about an hour to get through. The Surrey stretch of the M25, that's blocked anti-clockwise 12 to 11 in the M3 in Chertsey following an accident. The A12 is blocked heading into London at the Little Heath Lights just after Romford following an accident. And Thameslink have suspended their trains in southwest London between Wimbledon and Sutton. It's a points failure, Thameslink say. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got Sean Salmon, the former Labour Minister, and Conor Tomlinson, the writer and commentator. Now, I could tell you, it won't surprise you, very divided opinions at home. Many people, Harry says, I actually feel sorry for Keir Starmer, Michelle. He's only been the Prime Minister for a month, and then having to deal with this when you arrive, it would be a rude awakening for anybody. Gary says, Michelle, what about people like Reform UK? Why don't they go to the forefront of all of this and organise peaceful protest? And then that way, if someone has got legitimate concerns, they can spread their message without the awful associated violence, he says. Simon says the police need to stop all of this. Whether or not this policing is two-tier or not, it is all covering up the real issues in society and what is actually it going to resolve. Marion says it would be good if someone from the Labour government listened to what was being said. These riots are happening because no one is listening. I've got to make a distinction. There is a difference between taking to the streets and peacefully protest. You know, no problems with that. That is one of the rights in society. You can't, though, and I can't believe I need to spread this out, you can't then set fire. If you've got an issue, and I would say it's an understandable issue, with not wanting to have an asylum hotel at the end of your road filled with people from war zones, that might be, to some, a legitimate concern. You don't then go and set fire to said hotel with people in it. I mean, that is absolutely unacceptable. I've got to say, social media is really playing a role in lots of this. Elon Musk, he has come under a lot of fire. He's been predicting stuff like civil wars in society, and he's been calling Keir Starmer two-tier Kia. And I would appeal to anyone during these moments of kind of heightened emotion. We've got to be responsible with what we post, because people are impressionable at the moment and people are angry and whipped up on all different sides of the coin. And something caught my eye as well. So we've seen people taking to the streets. There's people, when lots of this was unfolding, talking about things like acid attacks, that Muslim women were being subjected to acid attacks. So many prominent campaigners. This one here, this is a guy guy called Nick Lowes. He heads up an organisation called Hope Not Hate.
Ugh.
He was saying Muslim women being acid attacked. Many people were repeating this claim. Cleveland police had to come out and issue a statement saying they'd had no reports of this whatsoever, saying that someone had called in and said something had happened, but they didn't know where, they didn't know what, they didn't know with whom, and they didn't know anything about it. And I mean, this has real-world consequences, because when you look at these people, they're taking to the streets and they specifically cite things like acid attacks. Listen to this.
Our fathers have come from a different country to here. We were born here. We are British, Pakistanis, we are Muslims. We will stand here. We will fight against EDL. We will fight our ground. Our innocent Muslim sisters are getting acid attacked. Mosques are getting broken. Everyone should be here.
So, I mean, this online stuff, it has real consequences.
Yeah, Nick Lowes and Hope Not Hate have repeatedly spread lies about me, about colleagues and friends of mine. They have released the personal information of anonymous Twitter accounts, and yet they have employed members of the Communist Party of Britain who a GB News investigation by Charlie Peters and Stephen Edgington found celebrated the Red Army, who obviously raped and murdered their way across Germany.
Yeah.
So
I mean, hold on,
Nick Lowes,
because obviously these people are not here to defend themselves, and I'm sure that they would deny a lot of this.
It's on video on GB News.
Right.
So that's fine. So these people are happy to be agitators against, quote-unquote, the far right, and yet, despite crying foul about misinformation, constantly publish lies on the internet without repercussions. I think it's disgraceful.
Sean?
I mean, I'm not, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not getting into that. I don't know. I don't work for...
No, I'm talking to you. You don't need to get into what he's saying. That's his view. I'm talking to you about disinformation that is being deliberately disseminated to whip up fury and abuse and violence and to divide people.
So my two answers to that are, firstly, much though I'm sure that Connor will say the opposite, given his not exactly balanced take about Hope Not Hate as a whole, I'd be surprised if he had deliberately tweeted that in order to whip up, make this violence worse. But certainly, if that thing that he tweeted was wrong and corrected by the police, then that is careless and unhelpful and making the situation worse. And everybody on all sides needs to be very conscious of not doing that. But again, I simply do not believe that there is any kind of equivalence between that kind of misinformation that's come out on what you might broadly call the left and the incredibly organised, systematic misinformation that we've seen from what surely in this case, even you will admit, is correctly called the far right, who have been driving this violent criminality.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that people have used this far-right label so often that it's now become so diminished as a phrase, and it worries me, because what's happening is you saw people take to the streets and they were just ordinary members of the public. You could see them. They were just old, young, and by the way, I don't agree with children being involved in any of this stuff, by the way. I just want to make that point. But they were old, young, they were your neighbours, they were just regular, ordinary people. What's happened is that then fragments of them have then started becoming violence, and that is appalling. But this notion that all of these people that have been taken to the streets are far right, that is absolutely for the birds. And I'll tell you what I really worry about. I really worry that many in society are going to have this cold shock, because when everyone in the media starts labelling these young teenagers and whatever, these thugs, as being far right, far right, far right, I really worry that the more this goes on and that people are whipping up different sides of arguments and communities in this country, when you're lying about acid attacks, and then when you're not removing those claims, when the police have even said that they haven't had a single report of that, I would say that that is irresponsible. And I'm not putting this on one individual. There's many people doing it, and that has real-world consequences. And the more that we see members of society taking to the streets to so-called defend their communities and so on, then I really do worry that then we really will see far-right people in response on the streets of Britain, and that will be a big awakening, and one that nobody wants, because everybody, especially myself and I'm sure everyone else, We need peace in society, and whatever side of opinion you are on, it is in everybody's best interest that all of this calms down, and that as a society we somehow, I don't know how by the way, but we somehow manage to come together and move forward in a productive way. Anyway, look, let's carry on conversations after the break. I'll see you in 2.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Karen Stevenson was born in Stoke-on-Trent and read music at Trinity College, Cambridge. She's played cello with many of the world's great orchestras under the batons of some of the most renowned conductors, and she joins me now to discuss her career and the importance of music in education. Tell me about that. What is your role at the Philharmonia?
My role at the Philharmonia is number 2 cello. I've been there for about 15 years. Sometimes I play number 1 cello as well, which is a great opportunity for me. Well,
it's interesting you say that, because I often think what a very difficult life it is to be a professional musician.
I make a living out of it. It is definitely possible. Yeah, we don't really like it when we get into a taxi and someone says, "What's your day job?" Because we work really hard.
I was kind of making the opposite point. Not that you'd also have a day job. I think the perfection that is required for a professional musician is extraordinary. On the whole, we are intolerant of mistakes in classical music.
Yes, we are.
And I just wonder whether you don't become very frustrated with a world in which everything else is imperfect.
You are only as good as your last concert, Michael. That's how it feels. It is a lot of pressure. Sometimes we will say, OK, a pint for every wrong note or something, but if depending on the piece of music, that could be quite dangerous.
How many hours a day do you have to practice?
You have to practice much more when you're younger, I think, when you're learning. I think this is really important. And when you're at music college, I'm a busy, I'm travelling, I have a family. I can't practice as much as I used to, so you have to rely on your experience. What I really wanted to say is that there's been a lot of fear-mongering about classical music being in decline and it not being relevant, and I really wanted to say that I don't think that's the case. Our audiences have increased. They're the highest they've been in 10 years.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. Till 7, Sean Simon and Connor Tomlinson remain alongside me. Lots of people, Andy, for example, points out, Michelle, many people have tried democracy to raise their concerns about things like controlling our borders and immigration. We've had so many votes alongside this. He's mentioning things like the Brexit referendum and so on and so forth. He says the problem is that people are just not listening. And if you have those concerns, what are you to do? What do you do? They're trying, the viewers are telling me, or many viewers are telling me, that they're trying democratic means. They don't really feel that is listened to. People feel exasperated, of course, just to echo and to repeat. None of it none of it justifies things like battering innocent people, setting fire to things and so on and so forth. That is criminality. Mike says, Michelle, come on. Everyone criticising riots. One of the problems is people in society have seen that their influence change. Many people are saying in Hare Hills, of course, you have those children that were taken away and then riots ensued and then they got put back in. You've seen scenarios where people have gathered outside of police stations dictating what needs to happen in criminal justice proceedings, or else And guess what? Those criminal justice proceedings seem to have been influenced. And many of my viewers are pointing out that that is one of the challenges in society. Anyway, look, Elon Musk, he's come under a lot of criticism. Some people suggesting that Twitter should be banned.
Yeah, he's decided to tweet out #2tier Keir. Musk has been monitoring various instances like this. He waded into the Parnell Square stabbings and subsequent protests and riots that toppled the Taoiseach in Ireland last November, so it's not shocking that he's looking at this too. And now Keir Starmer has completely lost control of the narrative when the man with the world's largest platform is tweeting out a damaging nickname for him.
Sean, should it be banned, Twitter?
No, of course not. I mean, I agree that it's not good. It's not good news for Keir Starmer. It doesn't help his case. But I mean, Elon Musk is not a credible commentator on the United Kingdom, is he? Doesn't know anything about our country, and he doesn't care anything at all.
How do you know how much he knows and cares about the UK? Do you know
because
him?
if he knew anything about our country, he would not be tweeting "Civil war is inevitable." Is that supposed to help? I mean, even if there was a scrap of truth in it, which if he knew anything about our country, he'd know that there wasn't. Nobody could think...
It's a worrying prediction.
Nobody could think that is a valid or credible attempt.
Well, let me say this. I absolutely hope that it's a wrong prediction. Put it that way. Look, that's all we've got time for. Keir Starmer imminently will be hosting another Cobra meeting. Let's see what the outcome of that is. You've heard different opinions from the panel tonight. I've got to say, personally, I absolutely do not think Keir Starmer has been handling this well at all. You can label people all you want, but it will not get to the root of the issues. Look, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for now. Thank you. Night-night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking further ahead, and there will be some rain at times for many of us as we go through Thursday and Friday, but for the time being, we're changing to something a bit cooler, a bit blustery and a bit showery because there's an area of low pressure to the northwest of the UK, and this is driving some showery bursts across parts of the UK. For many central and eastern parts of England and also eastern Scotland, it's actually going to be a largely dry night with some clear skies, but further west we have quite a few showers piling in, and some of them could be a little bit on the heavy side. Most notable perhaps in the south will be the fresher feel to things. Temperatures will be a good few degrees lower than they were last night, perhaps a bit more comfortable for sleeping. Taking a closer look at first thing tomorrow morning, then across much of central southern England, it's looking like a bright fine start, but some showers across parts of the southwest and also some showers for parts of Wales as well, and northwest England too. Meanwhile, northeast England starting the day largely dry. Quite a few showers across Northern Ireland, but it's across Scotland where we're going to have the heaviest, most persistent rain, some showery rain making its way northeastwards as we go through the morning. This rain could cause some problems on the roads, could be some spray around, perhaps even a little bit of localised flooding. But it does clear away northwards as we go through the morning and breaks up, so just turning quite showery across Scotland and also across many northern and western parts through much of the day. Towards the south and east, you have a greater chance of avoiding those showers, and here we'll have the highest temperatures, highs of around 23, 24, so not quite as high as they have been recently. More wet weather to come as we go through towards the end of the week. There are a series of fronts waiting to come in from the west, so most of us will see some rain arriving as we go through Thursday, and there could be a bit more rain to come as we go through Friday as well. All the time it's likely to be quite blustery or breezy, and so that will add to the relatively cool feel to things considering it is August. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Delays of about 25 minutes continue heading west through West Yorkshire along the M62, of course, approaching junction 26, the Chain Bar interchange, of course, the M606 exit for Bradford, where the two outside lanes blocked off by a collision of queues back to the M621 as you head away from Leeds, basically. On the M1 in Nottinghamshire, the two inside lanes are closed northbound 27 to 28 towards the A38, Alfreton and Mansfield exit. The lorry is on fire. Further south on the M1, the motorway's down to a single lane southbound southbound through Bedfordshire, 13 to 12. Just south of Bedford, 3 lorries are involved in an accident. Everyone's been squeezed into the outside lane past the scene through those roadworks, not helping matters. And on the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25 heading clockwise, the 2 inside lanes are closed just after the A10 in the Holmesdale Tunnel. Emergency repair works continue. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway. An incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. David from Kent was our last big winner. Listen to what he had to say about getting that winning call.
Hi, I'm David from Kent and I won £15,000 and it couldn't have come at a better time. I was gobsmacked. What have you got to lose for what it costs? In fact, I've done it again this week, so I'd recommend it to anybody.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues